Maybe 8 years ago or so, I was at a weird spot in my life. I had just moved to New York, just broke up with a long-term lover of mine, and I became very depressed. I was doing a lot of self-reflection and looking at my life, and I came to this unfortunate and pessimistic decision that life was meaningless and had no point to it and everything was made up. So it sent me in this like really depressive, weird spiral. I didn't know what the point of living was. I contemplated death and not living anymore and taking my own life. And then by miracle, I stumbled upon something one day and I found this Buddhist demonstration. I ended up buying a book on Buddhism because I knew nothing about it. And I started reading through the pages and flipping through it. And I discovered that here was this guy that went out into the world and basically came to similar conclusions that I did, except he had this very positive, beautiful spin on it. And it completely shifted and transformed my life. At the time, I was starting to get into cooking, and I started applying these different principles from Buddhism into cooking. And that was actually what the foundation of all of the food that I was cooking was based around Buddhism, and not around the specific techniques and dishes. And it gave me this very unique perspective to understand the world in a way that allowed me to be happy, but also connect to my food and feel fantastic. So a huge inspiration for this video is I just want to share with you guys some things I've learned in the kitchen via Buddhism that have completely changed my life and will give you a much better grip and confidence when you're cooking. So one of the foundations of Buddhism is the Buddha discovered that life is suffering. And that might sound like a bad and negative thing, but what he really realized was that when we attach ourselves to things in the world, because naturally in life everything is always changing. Life is transient. There's nothing that is ever staying the same. Even you watching this video, you are changing in this moment. Because of that, if you cling on to stuff, the moment it changes, you have suffering. Let's say you're in love with someone, all of a sudden they don't love you anymore. Well, you have this attachment to them, so you create suffering. And it's not to say you shouldn't attach yourself to stuff. It's just knowing that when stuff changes, you can actually be okay with that and you can see the flow and the point of it. So cooking to me is a great example. Sometimes we have a dish that we want to cook and we're so sure of like, it's got to be this way. I'm making, you know, the Le Cordon Bleu chicken or whatever it is. And then something goes wrong, something burns, right? Something, oh God, no, it burned, I screwed it, I overcooked the chicken. And then we're so attached to it being a certain way or being the way we made it last time that we just feel sad. However, if you understand Buddhist philosophy and realize that you can roll with the punches, well now all of a sudden you're opening up to something new and maybe you create something even better because now you overcooked that chicken, now you have to do something new with it. So a lot of stuff you see on Brothers Green when we're burning things and we're fixing them on the spot, we're showing you real cooking because things do go wrong in the kitchen. But if you're not attached to it, that's okay because you can create something completely new. So typically I couldn't actually find Lotus Root just straight up, but this is just like a convenient way. They have it nice and sliced up for you. Lotus Root is amazing. Basically just salt, oil, and just roast it, and you end up with these like chips. Have you ever had it before? Have you guys had Lotus Root? Instead of making like potato chips, or it's kind of like a potato chip french fry a little bit, you know? Another good example of sometimes when I cook these, they will burn. And the first time I did that, I was really upset because I had this group of people coming over and I wanted to like, you know, impress them. I got all these cool recipes. It was new friends, just moved to Denver. And I was gonna not put them out, but I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna put it out and just trust. And people were like, these are amazing, like the crispy, and so you don't always know how people are gonna react to stuff. But one of the reasons I've been kind of reacquainting myself with Buddhism is Buddha says to use my teachings like a raft to take me from one place to the other. Once you're there, don't hold on to it in your back. And I think that's what I did, but there were some things I forgot along the way. And just in general, having a YouTube channel and like having followers and responsibility, it can be very, at least for me, it can be challenging not to get lost in that, not to feel like I need to keep up certain things or, you know, keep up this illusion that I know what I'm talking about all the time, or I always have like a new video to come out with. And it can be tiring and draining, always thinking of new like viral-esque stuff that people are going to want to see. But at some point you need to make a change and grow, and I think I was getting depressed because I was back in that loop of like, what do my fans want, and not doing what felt right to me. And even though that sometimes that's hard because you change and people want to see the old, like there's always going to be people that are like, I like the old stuff better, you know, and for some reason that can be the hardest to hear those comments. Like, what happened to you guys, you're sellouts, and that's why I had to step back from making a lot of videos and start remembering what I enjoy about them. Always go back to a little Mr. Buddha. But one thing about the Buddha though is there's this concept that when you see the Buddha on the road, you're supposed to cut his head off. And this is another huge part to this, and this is like one of the, I think, the most important elements. And people think they hear that and they're like, what do you mean? The Buddha, like, he's this peaceful man. But if you see the Buddha as anyone outside of yourself, if you think of him as this like guru, and you see this happens a lot. I don't know if you guys saw Wild Wild Country, right? Did you see it?
Sick.
It's crazy, right? But people see this guru and they see this image of this sort of prophet, and then they follow him instead of realizing that like it's in yourself. Because the Buddha says, don't trust me, don't have blind faith, come see for yourself. That's kind of how I approach cooking. It's like, don't just look at me and see a recipe that I made and try to recreate it. Like, get in the kitchen and make it for yourself and see what's gonna come out of it. This used to be something, like when I'm not in a state of being present and mindful.
Tedious.
This is tedious, it's annoying, it's like, I'm usually like half-assing it, but I'm just remembering to slow down again. I think that's a big part of it, to any of this. The biggest start, when you want to just become more present, is just to slow down. So you kind of have to shake up your own sense of self, and sometimes slowing down and doing things a little bit different. And also just being aware that if you notice this pan, like the stuff on the edges, it's going to cook more, just the way the oven is. It's hotter on these sides. So just be aware of stuff like that. Flip stuff, you can move stuff around. What I could do is like, you know, put this guy here. Just say, hey, you're over here now, buddy. And normally I go online and sort of figure out what it is, but my Uber driver, she just recognized it and told me exactly what to do. For the burdock root, she just said soy sauce, some semblance of like sugar, like honey. Oh. Tastes like soy and honey. Boil that, see what the hell happens there. It's the mystery dish that turned out incredible. It's basically, it's like more hearty than a carrot, but like robust like a potato. Now for the broccoli. What would you guys say are the main reasons why people do not cook?
Time.
Time.
A fear of failure.
Fear of failure.
Cleaning up.
Cleaning. The reason I asked them is because I wanted to see if this sort of Buddhist perspective can answer them all, and I think it does. So you said time. So time doesn't exist. So there you go. That's a good one. Time is made up. It's an illusion. Fear, another thing. It's fear of what? Fear of failure, which is an attachment. Like this idea that if we fail, like we're gonna be less than. We have these conditioned stories to believe that failing is wrong. Like, you know, be a man, whatever it is. It all stems from fear. Fear of garlic. Okay, I'm just basically gonna sort of fake steam this. There's like I mean, if you can't get it, that's totally cool. It's delicious anyway. I think broccoli is maybe one of the best vegetables ever invented by Mother Nature. But I like to just give it like a little bit of a steam, because I find when you get that balance between chewiness and crunch with the sauce, make you forget about meat, especially someone that likes to eat meat. What I do is I just add a little water to the pan, and I'll mix it around, but as the water steams out, it steams the broccoli without making it like mushy. It starts to tenderize it just a little bit while keeping some of the crunch. Broccoli's almost done, and there's a little bit of liquid left. Depending on how much I add, it will obviously change things up, but it's kind of nice because that liquid now has the flavor of the broccoli, the garlic, the ginger. So I'm just gonna add some soy sauce, rice vinegar, just a little splash, honey. Squirrel in it, and sesame. Never hesitate to like try something. If you're worried, just taste it. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like it's cooked, but you still get a little bit of the crunch of the broccoli. Alright, cool. Looking good to me. Okay, so I'm gonna make this little gochujang. Basically, you take the gochujang powder, the gochujang paste, honey, because you definitely need the sweetness, some rice vinegar, and a lot of, especially with Korean cooking, like it's founded on a lot of very basic things, like scallion, sesame. And for this though, like I'm being inspired by Korean food, but by no means, if you're out there and you're looking and you're like, that's not authentic, it's okay, just take a deep breath, relax. My main focus here is making it delicious and enjoying it with my friends. Okay, gonna add a little soy. Like I said, what I like to do is kind of add some things, taste it, and then see what it needs. Does it need more acid? Does it like the acid? Sweetness. Man, oh yeah, definitely needs more honey. Oh mama! And rice vinegar. It's very spicy, very good. Sauce making, if you're someone that's intimidated by cooking, start making sauces and just adding it to stuff that you already have. Help you get a sense of balance of flavors and the importance of the flow and tasting things. Oh my god, that's good. Alright, it's perfect. So typically with kimchi pancake, they're going to be making like a batter. It's like a pancake, but simple. I thought it'd be fun to try a couple different flours just to get something new and different. If I'd have to guess, I've never made a batter that I didn't like. They don't always come out the way you want them to, but they always turn into something. They're usually pretty good. So tapioca starch is going to help with like crispiness of it, kind of help keep it together a little bit. Just a little bit of that. Rice flour will also help with some crispiness, good texture. So I'm just going to squeeze out all the juices first and get that in there, and that will kind of add to the batter when I add water. A quick little rough chop. Cool, so I'm going to add some water in here. It probably needs a lot more. Sort of. Yeah. And dumplings are amazing no matter how you make them, so this is a sure thing, but basically just mashed up some firm tofu and cut up some kimchi with the sauce, threw it in there. I'll probably add some soy, maybe a little sesame, you know, your standard scallion. Really just give it a taste though. One thing I like about working with vegetarian food is you don't have to worry about cross-contamination with cooked, not cooked, like, oh, I can't taste this batter, it's got raw meat. It's just delicious. A little spritz of sesame.
There we go.
The key to dumpling rolling is just don't add too much filling. Unless you're like a master, always add a little bit less than you think, and you can always add more. There's lots of different ways to, like, you know, if I wanted, I can go like this.
Oh yeah, that's pretty.
To make your dumplings look awesome.
Yeah.
I think that my least favorite way of making dumplings is to just fry them. We used to do that a lot for catering jobs where you just deep fry them, but you miss out on so much because you need the chew to really appreciate the dumpling. One thing I will say about Buddhism is a lot of people think about it as a religion. Some people think about it as philosophy. And to me, it's really just a way of life that helps you understand life better and be happier and just get the nature of reality in a way where you can flow through the world. They have this concept of impermanence. Like I said, things are always changing. And if we cling on to stuff, we create suffering. So what they would do as a practice is they would build these beautiful sand mandalas. And you should go look them up right now, like these magical things, sand and beads and all these different colors, and they would spend hours and not days creating them. And then once it was done, they would take a giant rake and just whoosh, and just completely wipe it out. And the whole concept is, if you're holding on to that painting and you're keeping it there, you're being stuck. But if you realize you spent the time and you're being present and you're aware while you're making this thing, then once it's gone, it doesn't matter, it goes. So it's like being in a relationship and having this great relationship with someone. You can appreciate it when it's there, but if it's gone and you're on to the next thing. And food works the exact same way. You spend hours, if not days sometimes, preparing a beautiful dish, and then you get to eat it. So I started seeing like, oh wow, I can treat food in the same way. Like we create it and then we destroy it, and then it becomes us, and there's this ever-growing connection to food. So when you have more of a sense of awareness when you're cooking, you can actually start to take away things and be more present with it. Meditation. So I'm sure most of you guys have heard of meditation. Maybe you think it's this weird thing that people with shaved heads and whatever and hippies do, but the truth is meditation is really just a heightened sense of awareness. So while most people think of meditation as like being off in a room, you know, lighting candles and, you know, like I've got my mushroom candles, you know, and you're lighting your candles and you're doing your whole thing, oftentimes that distracts us from the reality of what meditation is. So if you think that meditation has to be lighting incense, candles, listening to waterfalls, just like, you're missing the point. That is one element of it, but that's just the superficial side. Meditation is a heightened sense of awareness, so you can be cooking and meditating. You can be in a conversation and meditating. So for me, and sometimes I admit that I forget, but one thing that I really started to appreciate about Buddhism was I used to get so frustrated when I had to cook, because I loved cooking, but sometimes I didn't have time. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just gotta like get through this and cut all these damn mushrooms. But then when you're being present with it, and you're not thinking about things you have to do or things you just did, or oh, I just texted that girl and like, when's she gonna respond to me, man? Like, what's going on? When you're not thinking about those things and you're just being present with the moment, it creates a sense of calm, sense of peace, and sense of awareness in your actual life that to me just started to change everything. It's the same with dishes. People, they cook a meal, they're happy about the meal, but then they have to clean. It's another great time to just be present. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I would meditate, but I don't have time, start seeing other ways in your life when you can actually be meditating. Food should not be intimidating. If you're scared of making stuff, all this food might seem like a lot when you're taking it all in, but realize every small piece contains a part of the whole. Start simple, take something like this, roast some sweet potato, make a sauce, you're good to go. Everything was made with love, made with presence and deliciousness.